Okay, so as Andrews mentions in chapter 2, there is an entire chapter in this book on rhetoric and multimodal. I don't have time to read all of the things because I really want to read and talk about this book with you all. And so I just want to really briefly talk about what do we mean by all writing, and the argument that Andrews is making is all writing is multimodal. And I will say that I 100% agree with that. All writing is multimodal. Okay, so this is, in theory, a traditional book. You do not need to read this until week 3. This video is coming in week 2, so this is not to make you feel like you're behind or anything. This is a book, all of us know how to interact with it because at this point we're grad students, right? We've done this umpteen times. You are old pros at this, like you understand a book. And a book typically, so we're just gonna open, hopefully, the page here, has text on it, right? And headings, and so we can kind of basically understand layout of a book. But when Andrew says all text is multimodal, what he's getting at is not just the layout of the text, although that's a part of it, then it's also what do we do with text? How do we make meaning? How do we note them? Okay, so very basic, and this is a great one. Like I have underlines and I have circles, but I also have flags here. And on some of these pages, I have extensive, most of the beginning, I have extensive notes to myself, and then these notes stick out in very specific ways beyond the text so that I can return to, but also remember what was it I needed to return to and what am I doing with this? And mine, I use sticky notes, post-it notes specifically because some of these are going to come off as I make the guided notes to you, and then what will remain are the notes that are for my research specifically. And so then the post-it note serves multiple multimodal functions because I can use it and remove it, or I can keep it there, or I can add to it if my research changes or as my research changes. But this is all a part of the text. Not everybody's text looks like this. This is my particular practice with the text. In fact, most of you are not going to use this extensive of post-it notes, and this is giving you anxiety right now. I know it gives a lot of people anxiety when they see my books, but I love to write with the text. Like this is very useful to me. And so then when I start to write, I can go to my notes and I've already got ideas like half formed to start the next piece. But what we're trying to define here is multimodal and the idea that all texts are multimodal. Okay, so we've got not just the text. The other things that we are dealing with here are the white space. Like literally, how is this text on this page laid out? What do headings look like and why do they look like that? How does the white space around them operate? And all of these are arguing for how we make meaning. They're not necessarily forwarding, although they are because it's a heading, they're forwarding the argument that LaCourte is making in this particular text, but they are also shifting how we're supposed to understand. So we're gonna understand a page and then we're gonna understand that this argument comes to an end and a new version or variety or pathway starts with this heading, and so we're going to shift our thinking and we're going to expect this first paragraph to do more introductory work than what these paragraphs leading up to it were doing. So the genre changes based on the style choice here because the style choices are also a part of the argument. And then it can change what we do with the text and how we make it even more multimodal and then how we work with it. So you all are taking notes. What do your notes look like and what are the choices you're making to track your learning? And then you've got a couple different things that you're doing with those notes in this class based on the assignments and how we're interacting. Which of your notes go in which direction to help you access those spaces the way that you need to? That's a part of the multimodal because you have made, and you'll see the terminology in here, you've made material choices, like physical to an extent or digital but space specific choices to interact and engage the text and your notes and your language in a very specific way to accomplish your goals. You are a participating member of the argument that is being created here based on the choice in multimodal reaction that you have. Even if I didn't require notes and I'm like, we're just gonna post a discussion about this, you would still need to do something related to notes or something to engage with the text so that it had the effect of what you need it to do so that you can produce the discussion. Or if you're using this for research, same, you're going to do something so that it turns from this text into something that you can use for your purposes. And that is a material practice that engages you as an audience member in co-constructing the argument. And that's what Andrews is getting at with multimodal. I know that that's complicated, so I'm going to say it again one more time. Audiences are active members co-constructing an argument. It's really connected to that idea of, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, did it really fall? You can put an argument out there anywhere, right? So in this class specifically, we're going to shift over to social media and digital media specifically as the spaces. I can put a tweet out there, or I can put a Blue Sky note out there, I can put a Facebook post out there, and it doesn't matter until someone engages with it. But then I, like most people, have multiple audiences across each of my platforms. How they engage shapes what is communicated. And it's also potentially going to shape my reaction to them. And I can have different audiences engage the same post differently, and it's going to shape the message that was being communicated, and in some cases potentially not intentionally, right? So we're here in Lancaster County, but I grew up in Arizona. So when I post pictures of my garden here, my Arizona family is just blown away. My mom's family is originally from upstate New York, so they did grow up with this, although my mom moved to Arizona when she was 9, so she doesn't remember the foliage of the Northeast the way that some of her older siblings do. And so the older siblings will respond in very specific ways to those pictures, and people that are just friends from that area will respond in specific ways. That's two different audiences who have constructed their arguments somewhat based on region, somewhat based on their ideologies. And then I have people from here, who then text me with, hey, do you have extras so that I can have some? Can we trade? I have this and you have that. Can we make a trade? A third argument that's going alongside, garden's not that productive yet, right? But later in the summer, those are the kinds of conversations I have. So I've got people who used to know who are responding to and shaping an argument. All I did was post a picture of my tomato plant, right? Picture of my tomato plant. And I've got an argument from people who remember when. And then I've got an argument, or persuasion, however we want to frame that, who are talking about differences in growing regions and what they're noticing and why things grow in that certain area. Similar, related, but different, because one's nostalgia and familial, and one is collegial, because these are my colleagues, and regional. And then I have neighbors and current colleagues who want to make trades because of what their garden is producing versus mine. I had a colleague who accidentally bought jalapeno peppers, so it wasn't even a trade. It was hey, I noticed you have a jalapeno plant, can I give you jalapenos? And then sometimes with that, it also then turned into recipes, right? So how we're engaging, I put a picture out there and I'm communicating something with my picture of my tomato plant, and I have different audiences co-constructing the argument alongside it. So a picture, yes, we inherently understand that as multimodal, but I don't think it's any different than if I had typed in a tweet, my tomato plant is as tall as my 5-year-old, my tomato plant, I was posting pictures like that a couple years ago where my tomato plants were bigger than my 10-year-old, which was amazing. So when we post images like that, or when we post text like that, it's already multimodal. And a part of that is, yes, the white space, yes, the language, yes, the images, yes, all of those pieces, but also, and this is Andrew's point, especially throughout the rest of the chapter, the fact that it's going to go to multiple audiences, and multiple audiences engage with the text and co-construct the argument or the persuasion or the idea or the message. We think of persuasion and argument as having to go in one direction or another or have to be opposites. It's just meaning making. They're co-constructing the meaning making alongside the message. I don't have 100% control over the message because all messages are multimodal. And because they're all multimodal and I'm giving up some of that control, even if I'm not posting it on social media, even if I'm not posting it digitally, I never do. If I'm reading a book, this is not how the court expected her book to look. But it is, because I am co-constructing the message of this book alongside the author. And that's how it always works. And so multimodal, yes, we're talking about all of the different modes. It can be visual, it can be oral, it can be white space, it can be the language use, the discourse, like all of the usual. But what it also really implies is the idea of circulation and how circulation changes or impacts who has access to it. And then once people have access, how are they co-constructing, and all of the different ways that that can look, because we're constantly co-constructing meaning alongside these messages. And that's what we're talking about with multimodal. Okay, if you have questions about that, let me know.